Welcome back. Without further ado, I think we're bringing in Aaron back and the rest of the fantastic panel. I'll let Aaron introduce the panel of quote judges that we have for today. There you go. There you go. Now we can see your smiley face.
It was fighting with the stop video button. So yes, no, it's great to be back, and we have a new set of panelists, and we're rejoined by Z. So once again, my name is Aaron Fike. I'm the founder and managing partner of Thin Line Capital. Thin Line Capital is part of the Wavemaker family of funds. Actually, Wavemaker is a long-established Southern California VC firm, and we're based here in Pasadena. This next section is Ag Tech and Environment. It seems appropriate. I'm looking out my window, and the sky in Pasadena is looking nowhere near like the sky in my background photo. So I been following the fires in Mount Wilson for the last week, so I'm glad to see that they're getting under control. So I would like to first have our judges introduce themselves, or panelists introduce themselves, and then I will turn it over to our companies for our first look. Blake, Maureen, Shaheen, and Z, you are all online. Z, do you want to start with an introduction, and then we can go from there? I can't hear you, but you don't look muted either.
Be a double mute situation.
Tell you what, Z, I'll buy you some time. Oh, never mind, you're on.
All right. Some of you saw me in the last session. I'm a MIT trained engineer, serial tech entrepreneur. For the last almost 2 decades, been investing and scouting and connecting in innovators at the frontier. And yeah, I'm a venture partner with Good Growth Capital, and I'll let Maureen maybe introduce Good Growth Capital.
Sure. Hi, I'm Maureen Stancic, Boyce, and I am a co-founder and venture partner, well, managing partner, sorry, at Good Growth Capital. I have an MBA and PhD from MIT as well, hence how Z and I originally met. Good Growth Capital invest in early stage tech and science-based companies. We do pre-seed and seed out of the Infinite Carter Fund. For those of you who are familiar with MIT, that's a long Carter there. And we also invest in seed and Series A in our general fund families. We're on our 3rd fund, and we have really interested in this space. We do health tech, green tech, advanced materials, some fintech, and a lot of data science.
And Blake, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I am with Alexandria Venture Investments, which is part of Alexandria Real Estate. And I lead our ag tech investment practice, as well as doing our life science investing for the Southeast. I'm based in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. Personal background, scientist by training, startup right out of grad school, and then spent quite a few years doing early stage venture investment before joining Alexandria to do the same and really to expand our ag tech venture practice. You may have heard from my colleague, Alice, yesterday, and obviously I work closely with Sarah Cohen, who I know is also involved. So great to see everyone.
That's excellent. Shaheen, are you on the line or no? Okay. All right, that's fine. All right, well, let's jump right in with our next group of companies. First up, we've got Delphire from Cal State Northridge. There you are. Okay, Delphire, take it away.
Hi, I'm Matt Smalley with Delphire, and we're here to help fight fires. See, California's got a $12.5 billion problem. I mean, if you've been anywhere in the state this past week, you've probably noticed that the whole thing is on fire. I mean, heck, there's a halfway decent chance you can actually see smoke outside your window right now. Fire season has been getting more intense year over year. Plus, we're always running way over our emergency budgets. And the only way that we can fight these trends is with information. So let me tell you why. Normally, data is gathered by scouts that patrol the perimeter of a fire. They check key locations and then radio back their status. Commanders, receiving multiple reports, then use this info to allocate limited resources as best they can. But the big issue is that scouts can only check on each location every 15 to 30 minutes. And a lot can happen in that time. Fires can travel far or change directions, sometimes with dire consequences. This is why the firefighters that we spoke with really want something that can give real-time information. They also want data from places that it's just too dangerous to send scouts. Plus, they want to detect falling embers, which can cause spot fires, and burning wildlife, because they can cross fire breaks and take the fire with them. But our patented oracles of Delphire can address these needs. These devices can be deployed by scouts along their normal routes and allow them to remotely monitor real-time video and IR feeds. Plus, they collect all the weather data necessary for firefighting, and you can even view your whole network at once, which easily integrates with existing systems. And with automated alerts, you'll never miss any fires, embers, or flaming squirrels. Delphire's oracles can help fire departments better deploy resources, improve safety, and enable faster responses. All this translates into fewer acres burned, which can dramatically reduce firefighting costs, so our units pay for themselves in no time. Plus, unlike alternatives like the budget-busting predators, our system works with fires of any size, so we can keep small fires from becoming big ones, and even when scaled up to large fires, we can provide equivalent or more useful information for a fraction of the cost. And since the units are reusable, they become an even better deal the more that you use them. Now, right now, we're using our own money to build an early proof of concept prototype, but soon we hope to start working on a more advanced one that we can eventually beta test with local fire departments. Once that's refined, we can begin early sales and then use the profit from those to build up our credibility, capacity, and infrastructure so that we can expand and enter new markets. See, while the firefighting market's a big one, we also have uses in a couple of others, and we'd love to tell you more about them if you're interested in fighting fire with Delphire. Thank you, and we are happy to take any questions.
That was enthusiastic. Thank you. I'd like to turn that over to our panelists for questions. And also, just if for the audience members, feel free to type something in the Q&A if you're in the audience as well.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
When I read your work that you had pre-submitted, it wasn't clear how these things are powered. It said it lasts X amount of time, but it wasn't specific how long the sensors last.
Sorry. Continue.
It wasn't clear how long the sensors last. So are they deployed just as a fire is starting? Are they deployed and remain in the field for months, years?
So these sensors are carried with firefighters as part of their, they're on their fire truck, and the scouts will put one at each location that they'd normally be checking. They can be left on location for days at a time because they're running off of battery, and then they can be viewed from a remote monitoring station.
And how long do the batteries last?
A few days.
That's an estimate based on the size of battery that we can put on these units. They're going to be pretty large units. Depending on the location and the market, we have different planned power sources for the unit. Matthew, if you can pop up your supplementary slides of the 3 markets. For the firefighting, we would have to work off batteries because there may be fire blocking the sun. For other locations, such as on power line monitoring or house monitoring, you can hook up directly into the grid, so you won't need that secondary power, and you can do long-term monitoring. So we see ourselves really addressing those 3 markets.
Now, this particular application is obviously very timely in our minds, but it's not always. It's a seasonal thing, and I'm wondering, what's your first beachhead market? What's your path to market going to look like?
Yeah, so our path to market is first to begin with fire departments, in particular, local ones here in California, the ones that we beta test, and then once it's refined, as many as we can reach, mostly in the United States, and again, California, because we have connections around here, and whichever ones that we can meet at firefighting conventions like FDIC. And then from there, once we have established our credibility that we work and that firefighters are using us, then it becomes an easier sell to power companies and residents that want to use these for security or monitoring power lines.
And to kind of follow up on that, what is your sort of your experience in fire? Because that's really, it sounds like through what you're saying now is that you have some really good connections. And so it's always helpful in a talk to really bolster your credibility, maybe a slide on the team and explaining why you are the right ones to enter this pretty esoteric market, right? So what is your background in this? And what are the customers saying? Have you been having these conversations? Because that's also really important to convey that you've been having these conversations, and what is it that they're asking for?
Sure. So the main reason that we're the ones to do it are that we have the patent and we have some personal connections with firefighters. The ones that we've talked to originally started with my neighbor, who is a firefighter. Gilberto is also friends with a fire chief, and then people that they've introduced us to. We actually have backgrounds in biology, the two of us. So in terms of the experience related to fires, it's an area that we definitely want to be bringing in help on. We have a patent, a very strong patent. If you want to use any sort of devices that have communication systems, weather sensors of a variety of types, and video and such, and you want it to be deployed and used for fighting fires, then it's covered by our patent. So we're the only people who can make that sort of system at this point in time.
And that was going to be my question, was on your competitive advantage, and it sounds like it's a patent. Has it been issued? Is it
has been granted.
Granted patent?
We have one granted and we have two pending. The one granted is on the system they already saw, which is why we want to use that as our beachhead market. The other two patents that we have pending are currently preliminary. They are in the power line monitoring and using these units for specifically firefighting or looking at fires on power lines, because they have a large issue of liability when power companies are being blamed for starting a fire. If you have a unit which monitors the power lines stably, which is something that you can't do with a drone, which would be the other alternative, you get a 24/7 view. You store it locally. When you detect an issue by AI using a certain set of infrared signatures or whichever features the customer may want, we can customize that somewhat. You can just upload the data via satellite link. There are currently a number of satellite networks coming online that are going to make this a lot easier to do. And so we see ourselves as very timely to be able to produce essentially a real-time monitoring for the firefighters on the ground, so they can view that information even very remotely and make some really informed decisions. Because even here in Pasadena, we had those fires and they only had 85 firefighters responding to it, because that's all the manpower they had. So we see the first market as sort of a force multiplier for the people on the ground, for the boots on the ground, to give them the data that they need to fight fires, and then going into a protection market for the fire lines to keep them well monitored and lower liability.
You may not be familiar, but power lines cause a lot of fires, and recently PG&E had to pay out $13.5 billion for the damage that they caused. So if we can detect fires earlier or assess maintenance needs to make them not cause the fires, that can save a lot of money for everybody, and a lot of lives too, because the Camp Fire was one of the deadliest in U.S. history, caused by PG&E.
So it sounds like the patent is you're really focused on the sensor package, but the firefighters don't really care what sensors they have in the field, right? They're going to want the data, they want the actionable information, they want it displayed in a meaningful way. So what are you doing with it once you get that data, and how are you communicating that back to the teams to make the decisions?
So for the firefighters, the units, we intend to have either a satellite or an LTE connection, but also unit-to-unit signals with short-length radio, similar to ham radio wavelengths, just in case it's too smoky for the satellite to work, or there's issues with the mobile data. And then there are a couple ways a commander can view all of the monitoring, all the units at once, but individual scouting teams or structure protection units may also want, and the ones we've interviewed did want, a monitoring station that they can carry around with their fire truck, because each structure protection unit and these scouts are checking multiple locations. And so if that scout can be in a central area and then seeing what's going on and getting notified as soon as something pops up, they can go and they can tackle the right spot immediately and deal with the fire while it's with a spot fire while it's, you know, very small because it was caused by an ember, or put out the fire caused by the flaming squirrel crossing your fire break before it gets out of control. I see a couple of questions.
We're going to be the last question because of timing. So very quickly from the audience, have you considered other modes of deployment such as airdrops? And is weight an issue if you're hand carrying? And you've got 10 seconds.
Yes, we have considered airdrops. That we think is going to be a further step. We'd rather get the ones that you can place down gently first. We think that'll be a little bit easier. And weight is something that we will be building around. It's definitely absolutely a consideration.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that presentation. That was really interesting. Both Matt and Gilberto, thank you so much for taking the time today. Before we go on to our next company, we have another panelist joining us. Shaheen, are you on the line? Okay, so we did not yet have.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, absolutely, no worries.
No, I couldn't get into it.
Yeah, just that's no problem. Take a quick second and give an introduction to yourself and the type of things that you're looking at.
Sure. We're impact investors focused on sustainable solutions, made noble companies, and a small fund called Sustain Equity. And we have offices in San Diego and in Panama, where we have some farms and some other ventures.
That's great. We're glad to have you today. So our next company is AquaTrax from UC Irvine. If AquaTrax is ready to go, they can take it away.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. So just a simple question in today's world, right? How much water is being lost on an average in these 50,000 water districts across US and globe, many more? So there is no accurate calculation, but the assumption is around 14 to 18%. That's a big number of water loss. And why is it having these kind of losses? Districts having these kind of losses because there's a continued aging infrastructure. There's like 100 years old infrastructure. So there is a big need of technological advancement to track these losses, control these losses, do water conservation, promote water conservation and all. And on top of everything, Governor Jerry Brown in California signed in 2015, SB 555, SB 606, so heavy duty compliances. So all in all, these are losses of like $4 billion across United States. It's a big thing going on in California and across the United States. Current solutions are not able to meet the requirements, the lack of accurate personalized water budget allocation, once a year manual audit, very reactive approach. Data accuracy is a questionable, whether billing dates, calendar dates align or not for calculating the losses. So all in all, there is no solution which provides Water 360 integrated, connected, and multi-tenant cloud platform. So what we have developed, AquaTrax have developed is Trackle, next generation cloud-based water loss tracking and compliance management platform. We are the only company who provide the compliance management to track losses, promote conservation, and be compliant. We also have smart water networks to manage pressure and flow for reduction of loss, pipe breaks, and electricity data savings, because imagine this all treated water which is lost is huge electricity cost as well. Okay, so we partner with Microsoft for startups. We are so we get thousands of dollars with them. Here a little timeline what we have done so far. We are working on Water Research Foundation. We have a great pipeline of 300 prospects. So we want to reach out to more and more. All in all, we have an end-to-end solution. which can integrate with any kind of utility backend system, SCADA system, payment system, AMI system, you name it, we integrate. That's where our specialties, that's where our bread and butter, because we have a strong development team which can integrate with any kind of backend systems. We have artificial intelligence, machine learning to control these losses. It's a cloud-based multi-tenant only company today, which is multi-tenant, meaning we can scale to 50,000 districts quickly. No other company has done that in past. We have done everything pre-integrated APIs, 6 to 8 weeks, quick solutions. And the beauty is we don't, once we integrate more neighboring districts, they all get some of these features because software is evolving. It's a cloud platform. They get free updates rather than like having long installation cycles and stuff like that. And plus, last but not the least, is the compliance management. So here are a couple of screenshots of our platform.
Actually, Amit, we're gonna have to save that for the questions because we're out of time for the presentation. But we've got 9 minutes now for a discussion. I'd like to turn it to our panelists to lead that off.
Well, I totally understand the issue here, the problem. Long ago, when I was at MIT, I worked for the Massachusetts Water Resource Authority, and you're right. There is a lot of aging infrastructure, and there's a lot of leaks. And I have paid for pipes to be replaced in front of my Back Bay condo. So who is your customer? It is the water resource authorities. It's the communities. It's the
Yes. So our primary clients are water districts, cities, municipalities. So there are 50,000 districts, so all of them. And slowly we are planning to expand into power, gas, solar, and oil as well.
Okay, and it's a long sales process with those folks. There's not a lot of money, obviously. How do you plan to sell? What is it, a cost-benefit analysis? And then even if they find the leaks, sometimes a water-rich area like Boston and the East Coast might not care. And so really, what's your target market? Is it California, the Southwest, and how big is that market?
So California itself is like 500 water districts. It's a huge market, 10 million meters. So that itself is like a huge market. And we have seen their compliances are very heavy, at least in 10 states right now, including Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, New Mexico. And there are some on Northeast like Michigan. I was in fact working with Michigan clients. So there are like 10, 15 states, Hawaii, where these compliances are coming on water loss reporting, SB 555, SB 606. Sooner or later, it's going to spread to entire states.
So I just wanted to follow up with Maureen's question or comment about the customers you're going after, right? Inherently conservative when you think about water. It's one of the more fundamental things that we need, that we use.
Yes.
So as a startup company, how do you position yourself, and what have the customers said about going with you as maybe the best solution, but a startup versus what I would consider, a tried and true SaaS player, the big Fortune 50 groups that are out there servicing these same customers?
Right. So number one, whosoever has seen, we have reached out to at least 300 water districts in California and other districts. So we reached out to 300 districts. What we have seen is everybody loved the product. The way then once they see it all in one dashboard, it's added value on top of meter companies, payment companies, billing companies. No other company has done that. There are very few players like WaterSmart, DropCounter, where we have a 20 to 30% parallelism, like in terms of customer engagement side, but we are on the utility side as well, like water loss tracking, online auditing, water budgeting, which nobody is doing it. It's a blue ocean complete. There's no blood in the water. And there's a good thing what you said, like top 50 companies. Unfortunately, Microsoft, Google, Apple, nobody has attempted to solve these problems. It's a complete blue ocean.
Well, you named Oracle as one of your competitors in your deck. And so back to Blake's point, instead of building a Salesforce team, and it's going to be a slow Salesforce, it's a slow sales process, have you thought about licensing out your technology?
Yes, and the very recent project we are working on, Smart Water Networks, is funded by Water Research Foundation for City of Lakewood, 20,000 meter AMI connections. All the vendors are there, Mueller, Neptune, and all. Nobody was willing to do that work. The reason Lakewood selected us because we were the nimble company which can do all these, which have deep technology learnings and we can implement. So we are doing this thing for them. And once next month, we are also starting the partnership approach with Neptune. Neptune has 300 clients. So we can go with 300 clients, for this added value product. Oracle, it bought the company called O-Power 3 years ago. And all O-Power did was produce home energy reports, which is 1% of our platform, which we do home water reports. Any day we can do that. So O-Power was bought by Oracle 3 years ago, $500 million deal. I don't know product is even used or not, but it's just home energy reports.
My question really is, have you thought about licensing your technology to some of the big guys?
Yes, we are thinking towards those. The main thing is around getting towards the channel partnering. So we go to 300, you're right, sales cycle is huge, but Neptune already has 300 clients. If we partner with Neptune or Mueller, then the product solution can go for 300 clients. Now, in that case, if we have to license something, we have to, that's where I need some support from investors and all, like to help me out, do a little bit on the go-to-market strategies.
So one of the questions I have, I mean, this is as Maureen said, a big problem, and it's been known for a while. My understanding of why the leaks were the way they were is just sensing them in the first place was not an easy thing to do. Is that true or not? Or how do you address that?
So losses are mainly two: apparent losses, real loss. Real loss are the leaks. When they do audits today, they don't know how much are real leaks. They actually go with computerized losses first, which are called billing losses, meaning how much you billed versus how much was supplied in the system. Based on that total loss, then they project out, okay, this much is apparent loss, total loss minus apparent loss, that's your leaks. So nobody has the real barometer for leaks. It is after the fact. When leak is already happened, then they estimate, okay, this could have been the damage.
Right, so we know we put this much water in the system and we billed for this much, so the difference must have gone somewhere, is the argument.
Correct, right.
Okay.
But there are some computerized errors also in the system. When they build, it's a huge giant systems. The billing systems have always some kind of issues. So like, in fact, you'll be surprised, more than 50% is apparent loss, computerized errors. That's where we are there. The moment we go into the districts, we found so many issues for them. We have a product, but we are also working as consultants. It's complete land and grab opportunity there because there's so much of misalignments or disparate system at the back end. Left hand does not know what right hand is doing. And you cannot even believe water is even harder to integrate because they don't have IT support. They don't have proper systems. The IT is the most laggard in this industry. It's unlike HR and other industries where IT is the leading tech. Here, IT is the last one. REST services are like as if completely new thing you're talking about there. It's all logged in systems.
So is your main value proposition finding actual, like real water that's leaking and stopping that leak? Or is it identifying phantom problems with their billing system and IT system that aren't really there? I mean, you mentioned both.
Yes. So basically, first what we are doing is we have algorithms to align the dates, billing and calendar dates. So first, for the water losses, they have the correct dates aligned, and then we have proactive monitoring. So right now, there is no way these guys monitor the losses every single day. So we have computerized algorithms, machine learning platform, which can predict also what can happen. Because what if you change pressure 1 PSI, does it change the flow? Does it change the consumption? That's all we are getting into, along with electricity data savings. So what time of the day, which pump should run so that they can save on electricity cost? I mean, Lakewood has 20,000 meters and their electricity cost is $70,000 a month. So we believe we can, with just fraction of our payments, we can save hundreds of thousands of dollars in electricity costs as well as leaks. And we do have customer engagement portal. So we are providing this whole ecosystem in our platform.
Excellent. Well, thank you for taking the time to meet today. We're going to have to wrap it up there, but I appreciate. Oh, sorry, Z, go ahead, but you got to be quick.
Oh, I just want to say, since we only have 20 seconds, so not a question, more of like just a comment. Like, you seem to have a really impressive technology. And I would love to have seen, it's really sad that you had such a long presentation and detailed that you never really got to some of the things we might have wanted to see. So I'd say really focus on creating a streamlined presentation that just is high level, because unless you have an expert like Maureen, and even with Maureen, people won't get it. So assume this seems like a customer presentation, right? Make sure that you have a different investor pitch that's different.
Sure, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you for the time today. It was great having you on. The next company, thank you. The next company we have is from UC Riverside, and it's Farmsense. Farmsense, if you're there, you can take it away.
Thank you so much. So we are Farmsense, the next generation of insect monitoring. For every crop that humans eat, there's at least one insect that attacks that. So for example, for almonds, that insect is a moth called the navel orange worm, and that damages about $1,700 per acre per year of almonds. If you extrapolate over all insects, all crops worldwide, this is a $200 billion a year problem. Our growers know this and they have some solutions, but here's what they do. They put sticky traps in the field. Every 2 weeks, they retrieve them, take them back to the lab, manually count them, manually put them into a spreadsheet, run a model, and based upon that outcome, make a decision to spray or not to spray. And the problem with this is it's inaccurate. A lot of bugs look alike. It's costly. And the big cost is human labor to walk around and drive around to detect these traps. But finally, there's a long time lag. Between the time the insect arrives in your field and the time actually you do your intervention could be 2 weeks. And by then, a small problem has gotten out of hand. Farmsense has the solution. You place our traps in the field, they attract the insects, and when insects arrive, we actually sense them and we classify them down to the level of sex and species. We do that because we have very clever machine learning algorithms, and we have those algorithms partly because we have more data in the rest of the world combined. And with machine learning, more data is critical. User experience is very familiar. You go to your iPhone, to your laptop, and you can look at the insects in your field in real time, slice and dice by time of arrival, by location, by sex, by species, and so forth. The benefits are really manifold. Most important, of course, is increased yield. You simply lose less of your crops to bad bugs. You reduce your pesticide use, and pesticides are very expensive by themselves, and the labor to apply them is very expensive. And of course, pesticides can kill good bugs like bees. In fact, you can use so little pesticide, often you do avoid pesticide completely, and use biological controls, which are better for the environment and cheaper. When I look at the space, we have competition, but we have unique technical advantages that really give us a head start. The most important one is classification. Look at this little bug here. Is it a good guy or a bad guy? I bet you can't tell. And actually, none of our rivals can either, but our sensor can tell, and it makes a huge difference. We are very ambitious. We want to be in every single field everywhere in the world. But in the short term, we're going to stay in our back garden, which is California. In California, we have 6 million acres of high-value fruits and nuts that need protection, and we're going to protect those. Our business model is very simple. We don't really make money selling sensors. We're not a sensor company. We are intrinsically a data or information company. We charge a small one-time fee for the sensor to be installed, but thereafter we make money with a subscription service per acre, per crop. We have paid trials with a bunch of customers. What's important to know actually is that in every case the customer came to us, we didn't go to them. There's a huge latent need for what we can do, and the customers actually find us and basically beg us for help. We got here today because we have really the best team in the world to do this. We've experienced PhDs in all the areas we need: wireless sensors, machine learning, entomology, and of course, very important, business. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks so much, Eamon. Let's turn it over to our panelists for questions.
So I have a question. How do you actually does the device capture the bugs and keep them and then take photos? Or is the bug flying through, or is it resting such that you can take a picture?
Great question. Great question.
How does it actually work?
Great question. We don't actually use pictures. All our rivals do. They take pictures of dead bugs stuck to a trap, which is actually hard to get information from. we sense live flying insects as they fly past our sensor. We have a very rich signal from these insects. That's what actually gives us the advantage of to classify them. We also physically capture them as kind of a backup. So our sensor will tell the grower, you have 17 moths in that trap in the field. And actually, occasionally the grower is very cynical. There shouldn't be any moths this time of the year. They can go out there, boots to the ground, open the trap, and count 16 or 17 or 18 moths in most cases.
So then how is that different from the tape trap? I mean, if you're better if you can do it in real time, but you capture, so you can capture the dead. It wasn't clear to me your answer.
Oh, sure.
You're looking for the moving insects, and you can categorize the moving insects, but then you also capture dead insects. So at what point does it have to be, at some point it has to be refilled or emptied, I should say.
No, surely. We've been capturing dead insects mostly because we have very cynical customers. People find it hard to believe we can actually do this classification at the level we can. So it's partially to keep the customer basically happy. Eventually, probably we will have very few sticky traps, and it'll be all non-capture. So the farmer can actually test or change the attractants once a month, every 6 weeks, and double check the counts. But the information he or she gets is basically live on a day-to-day basis. And actually, that's what's going to be critical, because if you wait 2 weeks, you have no choice but to do a blanket spray. If you know ahead of time, do a tiny pinpoint spray and get a better result.
So it's just taking pictures of the insects as they're flying through something or as they're flying past something?
No, surely. It's not actually picture. So it's basically optically recorded sound, if that makes sense. You can't record real sound in the field because wind noise would simply dominate. But we have a special sensor, which we've patented, that shines a light across a kind of a curtain. As the insect breaks that light, we tease out a signal from that, and then it goes to machine learning to classify which insect it is.
I'd like to first say that this is a really good pitch. So for the other folks that are on this call, I think you did a really, really good job in telling the story and describing, what's the market, what's the business model. So I just want to, highlight that people should look at your pitch. You did a really good job. And I really like your business model as well. So you're not selling the hardware, you're really selling a service. That said, there is hardware involved. And hardware is hard. So tell us a bit about what's your experience in developing hardware, what's the bill of materials look like, and then the costs.
No, surely. This spun out of an academic project. And 8 years ago, I was making the hardware. I'm not a hardware guy. Dr. Slandar Singh is a hardware genius. He took my basic design, redesigned it. He got the power demand down by a factor of 100. He got the signal to noise ratio up by a factor of 100. And you got the price down dramatically. So now these sensors are absolutely beautiful. They work incredibly well, and they cost about $200. With scale of production, we estimate we'll be at $40 2 years from now. At that point, it's so cheap. If you lose one or you break one once in a while, you don't even care. It's basically a disposable almost at that point. Did that answer your question? Sorry, you're on mute. I can't hear you. Oh.
How long does it take for you to recoup the cost of the hardware with your service?
With high-value fruits and nuts, a few months. We think these actually will last multiple seasons. We've already had a few last 2 years. We're quite a new company. So they probably will last 3 or 4 seasons in general. So we'll recoup the cost quite easily. And again, our cost is going to be out of $40 in the next 2 years for this production.
How many different pest insects can you classify currently, and how many do you see as possible? Will it be local, just to California? Will it be?
No, so we already have sensors live today in Spain, Italy, multiple American states, South America, and New Zealand. So this works worldwide. In terms of the number of insects, it depends. There's well over 1 million insect species. There's about 20,000 pests that are really important, and some are very important. So navel orange worm we got on day 1, like on apple moth, codlin moth, and so forth. So we have now kind of a library, a model for 20 important pests that are very important. And every month or every few months, we're kind of expanding our model to a new insect. So we're constantly building a portfolio.
On the insects themselves, and I guess this is kind of goes back to one of the earlier pictures that and Delphire talked about the actionable information. I mean, you attract, calculating the number of adult insects, is that too late for the farmers?
Let me give you an example of actual information. So some growers use things called puffers that release a pheromone in the field, and the pheromone confuses the males. The males cannot find the females, so there's no eggs laid. And it's actually the babies that cause the problem, not the adults, of course.
Right.
Puffers are very, very expensive. And what we're able to show as one grower is that the insects don't arrive at nighttime. They arrive in a very narrow window from 3 to 5. So that grower got an 80% saving in a chemical cost and got the exact same result. So we get really beautiful, fine information in both space and time they can exploit. And the information could be time of day, or it could be time of season, or it could be location in the field. But this is really rich information to exploit in multiple ways.
So with the time of day discovery, which sounds good, if I'm the neighbor of that field, do I need your sample, or do I now know that I should just turn my puffers on?
It's a good point, but the time of day actually can change over the season, north and south, closeness to water and other things. So the 3 to 5 recipe won't work for you all the time. You need to actually continually sample this, basically.
But is there a subscription opportunity where I don't need the hardware?
It is possible. Insect behavior can be quite localized. I mean, it's not that uncommon to have one grower have a real big problem, and a few miles away have a lesser problem. And it might be because somewhere in between, someone's in disruption, it might be. So you really do need localized information. I mean, knowing the traffic here on Riverside doesn't tell you about LA that much, right? It can be different, and they're only 40 miles away.
I think what Blake is saying, though, it's a feature, not a bug, no pun intended. If you can actually sell the data at a cheaper cost, potentially, to folks without the hardware, you know?
No, it is true that we exploited that at multiple levels. So apart from growers, we have data that people really want. So seed companies develop new seeds that might cost $1 billion to develop, but are resistant to insects, but resistance wears away. Or chemical companies have new pesticide and want to know how well it works. And they do small trials in their own fields in Iowa, but we have rich information they would love to exploit. We have information that states want, the federal government wants, universities want, that seed companies want. So yeah, there's a lot of data to be exploited in multiple ways here.
So I had a question.
Thanks,
You mentioned that you have trials or tests. You're in the field in different countries, different states within the United States. Are these paid pilots? And if so, what's your current revenue?
These are paid pilots. We have a couple $100,000 in these.
So talk to me quickly, and I guess we're running out of time, so it will be quickly, but on the distribution channel, do you sell directly to the growers, or are there companies already providing services to the growers and you actually sell to them who sells to the growers? What's that channel look like?
That's a good question. In California, a grower cannot apply pesticide himself. They have to get a prescription, essentially, from a licensed pest control advisor. There are 4,000 people here in California. And essentially, those 4,000 people make all the decisions in California about pesticides, and they need all the information to make those decisions. So those 4,000 people are really our most important customers. So actually, one of our team actually is one of those licensed pest control advisors. So if you get them, you get the world, basically. And we have channels to get to them.
That's interesting. Thank you so much, Eamon, for the time. It was really great hearing how you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the feedback opportunity.
So our next company is Shamrock Greens, and if they are ready to go, they can take it away.
Okay, my name is Stan Completa, and I'm going to introduce you to Shamrock Greens. Shamrock combines two ideas, providing a variety of high-quality, local, garden-fresh, living greens and herbs, and creating a highly innovative indoor vertical farming system. To give you an idea, a recent indoor farm touts growing in 1 acre what traditional farming takes 30 acres. Our system outperforms traditional farming by a factor of 80 when measured by weight and 750 when measured by units. Furthermore, we're 25% more productive per square meter than the plant factory benchmark developed in Chiba, Japan. We estimate a $10 billion total addressable market for greens and herbs requiring preparation. We pare this down to $2 billion and expect to achieve $100 million with 7 factories. We all know climate change, food security, and grocer supply and profitability are growing pain points. We address all 3, but we will focus on improving grocer profits by a factor of 4 with improved shelf life, higher inventory turns, and reliable supply at a stable price. My background is in technology, manufacturing, supply chain, and organizational leadership. Peter Bigsby, my partner, is a 30-year commercial farmer specializing in hydroponics and customer relations. We met and worked together at Plenty. I stood up their first remote farm. Our advisors span all critical disciplines from plant science to control systems. Please note 2 MIT grads. Our solution is trade named the Anaconda. We researched the highest yielding greenhouse equipment in the world and re-engineered it for indoor growing and manufacturing best practices. We then iterated on the full system design to optimize our return on investment. We estimate that we are 2 to 3 times more capital efficient and 20% less in cost per pound than other indoor farms and equal or better than the best greenhouses. We filed a provisional patent on the continuous flow multi-layer system that eliminates the needs for robots, transplanting, sorting, and excess material handling. Our total solution doesn't stop with Anaconda. Our location strategy places our factors on reefer trucks, return routes to grocer DCs. For traction, we have fully developed 14 salad greens and 4 herbs that customers love. We have established price points, ongoing revenue, and a loyal customer base. We have 4 phases of expansion. The phase 1 pilot will allow us to prove demand and de-risk future phases. Our top 3 channels in white are who we sell to today. Our pilot go-to-market plan is to sell 4 cases a week to several multi-outlet grocers in light green that will take us to 1.8 million. We're raising 3.5 million for the pilot. We have identified 4 verticals showing activity in indoor farm acquisition. At exit, we expect a 3 to 10 times return. This graph demonstrates our plan to scale to 7 factories in 7 years. Our goal is to fund growth from operations by year 4. In closing, we have a very loyal customer base. We developed the Anaconda to help solve climate change, food security, and grocer profitability. We will focus on the third so that our revenue growth and operations can be a showcase for scalable, sustainable food production for uncertain times. Thank you.
Stan, that was great. I'd like to turn it to our panelists now.
Okay. Let me stop hearing. All right, good.
Hi, Stan. This is a really crowded space. And so I'm wondering, and you did mention you had some advantages over other vertical farming companies, but is it enough to really, differentiate yourself? And also, what did you learn from all the companies that have tried to make it in this space and failed?
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of questions there. So first off, I think that there is there's generations here of what's going to happen for indoor farming. And if you look at the existing farms, they're using batch or mass production. We're taking it to an industrial level and we're using continuous flow. And by doing that, I am bringing down the cost by a factor of 20%. There's other things that we're doing as well that are part of our technology. One is, instead of hiring up a bunch of engineers and taking a not invented here approach, we actually teamed up with greenhouse manufacturers in Europe. So we actually leverage their engineering and we have a very, very low overhead. That's another thing. And some of the things that we've done in technology, we're able to increase the volumetric space as we grow the plant, as the plant matures. We also have, this is more or less a platform to be able to collect data at a specific point in time for every product, every crop going through its life cycle. And then this platform enables us to move into other products, not just leafy greens and herbs. So does that help answer your question?
Sure. And also, what will keep you from, or maybe it won't, but are you going to go into cannabis?
We can actually do that. We would only license that. We would not do it ourselves. It's not in our mission for the company. So we think that, let's say after 4 years, we will have all the kinks worked out. And at that point, if we're as successful as we believe, we will license our system, because there's no way we're going to be able to put this up in all areas. We also think that there's going to be, at a crowded space, we think there's going to be a shakeout. So everything we've done is to design around cost reduction. In my background, I have a lot of cost reduction work.
What kind of density geographically do you need to make this feasible? Obviously there's a lot of cost in shipping. So what kind of populations, how many areas in the United States, for example, are dense enough for you to be profitable to ship your your goods?
Well, that's another really good question. So we can actually be profitable on 1/3 of a factory size, but let me give you the full factory. The full factory will
No,
be,
it's not. I'm sorry. The question is not the factory size. It's how many regions. So 1/3 factory size, okay. But then you have to ship it, right, a certain distance. So I worked at Peapod. I worked at the original web van. Transporting food is expensive. So how many regions can you service in the United States? What percent of the population in the United States can you serve? Now, obviously, you can serve elsewhere because the population is dense enough for you to do it profitably.
okay, from a population standpoint, we didn't look at it that way. We actually looked at it from a number of grocer outlets, and 200 grocer outlets is what we would go after. So one factory can satisfy 200 grocer outlets. We can, it all depends on how many SKUs that we have. So we've mapped out different, let's say major in the Northwest, or at least the central, the North Central has 230 outlets. So we would talk to them and we would go and set up a factory very close to their distribution center and work through the supply chain before we decided where that location would be. And we would try to satisfy their entire region. And then there's other grocers too that have, let's say Trader Joe's on the West Coast, they have 200 to 250 outlets, and we'd service those 2 distribution centers or 2 or 3 distribution centers.
I think it's somewhat, but I do think that's probably a next step for you to figure out distribution costs. So it's not just making it and how profitable you can grow the material, the goods, but then distributing it. How far can you distribute it and still make a profit?
We plan on having the grocer actually pick up our product.
Yeah, that might not happen.
Well, we'll learn, because the first factory, that's what we're planning on. We're right at the corner of 101 and 46. And there's all types of reefer trucks, and we've talked to grocers about this. But yeah, in other areas of the country, it may be different. Our plan is to be very close to distribution centers, so it's not a long transportation. I mean, that's the whole idea of these small farms, is to be able to be right next to distribution centers, so the transportation is cut out.
I'll if you contact me afterwards, I'll send you some names of people who can help you with the distribution piece.
Okay. We do have money in there for distribution, though, just so you know, in case this doesn't happen.
Z, did
Scott
you have
DeWitt
something?
asked, well, I just was noticing that Scott DeWitt asked in the Q&A a question I was going to ask too, was, so is there a price premium for what you're offering? If so, what is the premium that customers are willing to pay?
Customers buy the product right now at $3 each, and then there's a discount if they buy 10 for $25. There is not a premium on us. As a matter of fact, our goal is to be competitive with field. After 5 farms, that's where we want to be. I know that sounds unrealistic, but when you think about other indoor farms and the price that they have, again, our innovation does ring out CapEx, and it rings out OpEx.
And
I would suggest, though, that you might compare yourself to this just organic grocery in the supermarket rather than your vertical farm, or maybe I misunderstood.
Right now we're hydroponic, so we can, with our technology, go organic. Other people with hydroponic have done it, so we have a plan for that if we need to. Our wholesale price is set at $150, and the wholesale price for other indoor is closer to $250, $2 to $250. So right now, customers are willing to pay $3 for a product, and we don't feel like we need to go lower than that. We can, we need to.
In indoor ag's really an exciting market, and I think we eat a lot of vegetables and fruits, so that it can be a relatively big market as well. So room for lots of players. CapEx seems to be a really fundamental question, right? When you look at Plenty and Bowery and Aero Farms and Shenandoah and all the big players. So how do you guys stack up compared to the existing players in terms of the CapEx needed to set up a big farm, not your pilot stage?
To do 1.7 to 2 million pounds a year, it's about $18 million. So we are 1/2 to 1/3 what the Plenties, the Aero Farms, the Boweries of the world are.
Mm-hmm. And that's through your continuous flow system.
Go ahead, sorry.
The continuous flow system is the savings there? Is that where that's?
Yeah, it's the continuous flow system. We don't have robots that are highly expensive to set up and debug. We also, again, because I have so much in manufacturing, we've brought in a lot of manufacturing technology that's already been developed. So we don't have high expense in that area as well. The other thing is the flow of the facility accommodates a very efficient climate control approach. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that's really important that we do that's different is we do built to suit. So everything that we're doing is for a reason. We've integrated the outer facility with the growth chambers. So we're not going into a leased facility other than the pilot, where you have to go and redo a bunch of stuff and it doesn't quite fit. And there's so much that's customized. There's so much extra work in that. I already learned the hard way that that is not the approach for indoor farming.
Dan, we're going to have to stop it there, but it sounds like you've got some good background with this business. So appreciate you taking the time today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Our last company for this session is Spero Renewables. They're from UC Santa Barbara. Spero, if you're ready, you can take it away.
All right, my name is Ian Klein. I'm the CTO at Spero Renewables, and we are a clean technology company making plant-based and sustainable substitutes to products which are currently made from petroleum. When you look at the modern world around us, it's easy to see that it is built on petroleum. Petroleum is found in the plastics around us, the clothing on our bodies, and yes, it is even found in the food that we eat. Did you know that 95% of vanilla flavoring is produced synthetically from petroleum? This is unhealthy, unsustainable, and there has to be a better way. And at Spero, we do have a better way. We have developed a technology for converting plants into products that are currently made from petroleum. Like petroleum, our technology could be used to make hundreds of different products, but we are focused initially on making a plant-based natural vanilla flavoring from corn. We're starting here because it is the highest value application of our technology. Once we've commercialized this application, we already know that we can use our technology to make plant-based and recyclable plastics. But today we're talking about vanilla. Vanilla represents a large and growing billion-dollar market. Vanilla bean cannot satisfy the demand of the consumers, so this demand has been filled by synthetic vanilla made from petroleum, which accounts for 95% of the market. But consumers are now demanding natural flavors. They don't want to see artificial flavorings on the labels. Our solution at Spero is to extract and purify natural vanilla flavoring from corn, abundant and low-cost corn fiber. This is natural in both the US and the EU, and our production cost is less than half of that of the competition. Our technology has been validated by the major players in the field. We have an initial purchase order of over $7 million, and we've modeled a production facility of 1,000 tons per year. This would generate $70 million in revenue with a $40 million margin and can be reproduced multiple times. The next step is to demonstrate this technology on an industrial.
Hey, you're back.
Everything just froze up and went black.
No, that's fine. So let's just do the Q&A if we can. It might have to be a little truncated, and but I think a discussion will be great. To our panelists, feel free to jump in.
So just a pitch comment, or maybe the way you're describing it. You're talking about a replacement for vanilla, and you say that you're going to go with a plant-based natural flavoring, which I instantly go to vanilla as a plant-based natural flavoring. So I think you need to work on that a little bit, because every
Yeah,
time you
so
said that, I just think, yeah, that exists.
Right.
It grows in nature. I have it on my shelf. I don't want yours. So,
so maybe I wasn't clear, but the issue is that 95% of vanilla flavoring is produced synthetically from petroleum. So when you go buy a small bottle for your kitchen, making cookies or whatever, that's going to be natural from the bean. But if you're a large food manufacturer, it's oftentimes cost prohibitive to actually use the vanilla produced from the bean.
so how do you stack up against that? You mentioned how you stacked up against the rice derived compound, but how do you stack up against natural vanilla?
Well, so they're both natural. They're both natural according to the legal definitions of how they've set that up. It's significantly lower cost than vanilla from vanilla bean. Less than it's probably about a quarter of the price. So it's significantly lower cost than that.
And how's the flavor?
So I got cut off right when I was talking about the scale up that we're doing. So we developed all this technology on the lab scale, and recently over the past month, we've been scaling the process up 1,000 times using contract manufacturing. And so that is actually in progress right now. This scale up with a contract manufacturer to validate the technology on an industrial scale and get it ready for licensing. This contract manufacturing is producing large volumes of our product, which will be available. We should be finished within the next month. And at that point, we'll be able to do, working with partners in the flavoring space, they'll actually be able to do the taste trials on this. So to date, they've done all of the analytical work and the product looks great. They're very satisfied with it. But an important part of the scale up is that they'll actually be able to do those taste panels that flavorists do.
I think that some of the questions that we have could be, and I know the presentation was cut off weird, right? But I think that what we're getting at is maybe some of your value proposition and some fundamental pieces of what you're trying to sell is not clear. And it's really important. And it feels like when we ask the questions, then you're not exactly answering the question asked. So one of the questions is, well, why not natural vanilla bean? Okay, I think we get that vanilla bean is way more expensive. So maybe defining how much more, because, if it's, half versus, 1/10 the cost, whatever, that's important. You also mentioned this, it's natural, but then you mentioned something about a rice substitute, but we don't really understand how do you stack up against that.
Yeah,
so that was another question that came up. And then also the taste, kind of wonder, is it possible to do a taste test before you scale it up? Why invest all this money in the scale up if you don't know if it actually tastes equivalent? And maybe you've done it. Just, maybe there's ways of getting to the answer quickly,
Yeah, working with the food manufacturers or the actual users of vanilla on an industrial scale, the taste testing is not something that's necessary at an early stage. That's more of a double check at the end, and all of the testing stacked up. So it's we're following the path.
Have you tasted it?
No, no, we've done all the analytical work, and that's typically what you would do when you're developing something, an ingredient like this. It's tasted on its own, it's not very good, but when you use it in the right concentrations in the right products, it's everyone knows it.
And so you're cheaper than using actual vanilla. Is there how does this compare? The whole point is you're displacing a low-cost petroleum product. Where do you match up against that? Are you more or less expensive than the petroleum product?
Yes, so this is we will be more expensive than the petroleum product. This is sort of an intermediate product where it's much cheaper than the vanilla from the vanilla bean, which is really only a few percentage of the market. There is a competing product made from Rice Bran that comes from China. We're cheaper than that. And the problem with that is that it's very limited in supply. and it's a variable supply. So the food manufacturers are really looking for new solutions. So we will be able to take that market, and by reducing the cost, we'll be able to begin taking market share from the synthetic flavoring. As an example, Nestle has pledged to move to all natural flavors within the next 5 years. So the big food companies are moving in this direction, and the natural market is growing at a rapid pace.
So you're offering a natural solution that's cheaper than the, I don't want to say authentic natural solution, but you're providing a synthetic natural solution as opposed to a synthetic petroleum-based solution. But that will appeal to a portion of the market that wants a natural solution, or possibly is misled to believe it's the actual solution. But that is where you're going for.
Yes. So our product will have natural flavoring on the label. From petroleum, it says artificial flavoring, and there's a big value in that labeling.
Yeah,
I think that the plant replacement sector is really hot. I'm really just at the wall of like the credibility that you've made it but not used it. Well,
It's going to be available at the end of the month. So those trials will be completed, and that will be an important step that will be completed before it's ready to be licensed.
Mm-hmm.
We're working on that.
I think it's great you have customer traction. I think that's exciting. And so clearly there's some sort of a demand. I think it could be clearer. I'd be interested in, I think we've kind of gotten to it a bit here about who's the customer, like why do they want something that's, natural? I get it now, right? But I think that could have been more clear, I think, in the presentation. Can you explain a bit about kind of where, what that go-to-market strategy is going to be for you?
Yes, so we're working right now with several corn milling companies, big multinational companies. We're working on setting up a joint development agreement where we would work with them to do some final pilot testing that will be required before this technology is implemented in their manufacturing. So the steps are, first step, complete the piloting that we're already doing and will be completed in a month. The next step is to execute a joint development agreement with one of these multinational grain processing companies. Our goal is to have that completed by the end of the year. We're very close with 2 companies right now, trying to find the best deal. And then finally, this will be commercialized through a licensing deal with one of these multinational grain processing companies, or it could be a joint development where Spero brings some of the funds to the table for commercialization, but we want to rely on external manufacturing expertise because that's not where our expertise is.
Quick question, what does your IP cover? And how are you protected?
Yes, so the IP is around the extraction and the purification methods that we've developed.
Ian, we're probably going to have to stop there, but thanks for sticking with us through the glitch. That was good to be able to delve into some more of the details. That was fantastic.
And I posted my information in the chat if anyone would like to follow up and see what was on those mysterious slides that we didn't get to.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So that finishes up the Ag Tech and Environment piece. This has been the First Look SoCal Innovation Showcase, brought to you by Alliance for SoCal Innovation and Lava. And I'd like to throw it back to Darren to take it away.
Thanks, Aaron. Before we lose Blake there, I do want to ask, I'm going to give them a few more seconds of time, just in the sense of the whole ecosystem model and thinking about this. Is that the type of startup that maybe would benefit from really talking to strategics who understand their specific use better and finding ways of getting financing from different strategics?
Yeah, I think engaging with strategics. I also think looking to the alternative food comps out there, those that they're usually more of a direct-to-consumer, and this is obviously an ingredient play, so a bit different. But I would even encourage Ian to go and look and see if there's a direct-to-consumer option for his substitute, maybe not based on his flavor profile. but going out there and yeah, the ingredients, you're going to need the strategics in play. And then looking at some of the alternative foods from, basically trying to create, vegan cheese and things like that. There's a big interest out there in this world. And so when I reviewed the material, I was like, this is really exciting. I like what's happening here, kind of creating vanilla from something else. I just wonder if there's maybe a DTC option for them.
Right. Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you again, Blake and Z.
Yeah, thank you. This was really great. Thanks for organizing and thanks for the invitation.
Great. And I know you're with Alexandria. Thank you for sponsoring today too.
Happy to.
Thanks.